I just didn't focus. So, but I was reading on literally like a collegiate level when I first got into high school, and they noticed that. And that was because going all the way back to when I was a little kid, I was reading everything I could get my hands. That was my escape. Every book I read, I didn't read it, man. I was inside that motherfucker. And I'd go up in a tree and I'd read. I read everything, man. Everything. The books in my house were Abbie Hoffman, Steal This Book. He was one of the FBI's 10 most wanted people. And it was all about doing terrorist activity and how to fucking get away with crimes and watch out for the pigs and do this, that, and the other thing. So, you know, I'm in high school and I went to play football with Ray. And of course, I don't know how to fucking play football. I don't know what the rules are, nothing, man. Nobody ever showed me. And so obviously I was not a good football player. But it got me, it was part of something, you know, and I was very well accepted on the team because I had such a good sense of humor. I kept the team laughing. That was kind of like my job. But, you know, in the times I played, I'd literally like imagine that I had parents, because everybody's parents were coming. I had nobody watching my ass play, you know, so it was just one of those things. I just wasn't really that motivated. But summer practice was a motherfucker, you know, Hell Week and all that shit where you know how it is. Mm-hmm. And of course, I had a long, like everybody, all adults say they had to walk far to school. They had a long walk. And I was walking home with my fucking pads and all my shit. And I was on, I think it was, the fuck was it? Was it Prairie or Hawthorne Boulevard? But I was walking by the Army. There was an Army recruiting office, Marine, Navy, and I think Air Force. And I looked through the window at the Army, and I wasn't thinking of this. By that time, I had already decided I wanted to be a cop. But I looked in there, and it's a fucking boiling hot day, and there's this water cooler sitting there. And so I stuck my head in, and the recruiter. Now you got to remember, Vietnam War had just ended like 4 years before that. And this guy was a Green Beret, the recruiter, Mike Krill, who had served in Vietnam, and he had his beret on and his fucking jump wings and all shit, and didn't mean anything to me. But I said, hey, can I use your fountain? He's like, yeah, hey, sure, go ahead. And then he says, so you interested in joining the military? And I said, oh, no, I'm good. And he goes, well, whoa, because I was trying to walk out. And he goes, wait a minute. And he goes, so what do you mean you're good? He goes, I said, well, I'm going to be a police officer. I'm going to join the LAPD. And he goes, okay, that's great. He goes, but what are you going to do? You can't do that till you're 21, right? And I said, yeah. And he goes, so what are you going to do between school and 21? And he had me. I didn't have an answer. I was like, and he goes, what do you think? He goes, that's like, 3 years, man. If you graduated 18, you're going to have to wait. What are you going to do in those 3 years? Besides get in trouble or get in trouble out here or get killed or something, And I was like, wow, He goes, let me show you something. And it was, I don't think it was a VHS, but it was the first videotape I'd ever seen in my whole life. I had never even heard of them. And you can see this video on YouTube. It blows my mind that I can look this up, because I know every frame of the video. He goes, let me show you something. He pops a video in, and it was an Army recruiting commercial about jump school, and it was like, fucking Army. We do, fucking airborne. And it shows these guys, the sun's coming up, they're at Fort Benning, and they're running and looking, and then it shows them getting extra, you'll run until your legs get so strong that it's the ground that hurts when you land. And then they're getting closer, and it's like, that's ground week, and then it's tower week, and you show these guys doing all their shit. And then jump week, and now they're in the plane, they're looking all scared, and then the light turns green, and they're jumping out, and it shows it in slow motion, man, from another plane. And I'm looking at these guys, man. And then it shows them getting their fucking wings. And I'm looking at Mike now, and I'm seeing his wings. And at that, I made a decision that I was going to get those fucking jump wings. And as you see, they meant a lot to me. I still wear them everywhere. Not because I think I'm a badass paratrooper, but because these were, remember, I sucked in football. I sucked in school. I sucked and failed at everything. I never succeeded one thing ever. And I really didn't think I'd get these, if the truth were known. I went in there thinking to myself, and I told you this, I would wake up every morning, like on the second day of jump school. I remember thinking, well, of course I'm not going to make it, because Mike doesn't achieve things. I'm not from that type of world where I could achieve something like this, because not every soldier has these. These are something special that other soldiers look up to that. So if you got those wings, man, the wings are above everything, man. And it's like, that means a lot. That's an airborne dude. He's not like everybody else. So of course I'm not going to get it. But my goal was, I'm going to be able to tell my kids someday that I made it through one day of jump school. That's what I said to myself on the second morning. And on the third morning, I said, I'm going to tell my kids in the future that dad made it through 2 days. And I did that all the way up until they fucking put those wings. And I remember thinking, did they fuck up and make a mistake? I'm standing here getting ready to get my fucking, I made it, because I couldn't believe it. So these wings that I wear now and tattooed on me are much, much more than jump wings. These are a reminder of what people can do, and what, more importantly, what I can do when the chips are down. And I've had to draw upon these in many, many situations. Some of them you're aware of. Fights for my life, man, where I'm losing, and I'm getting ready to get killed. The guy tells me, I'm going to kill you, man. He's got my gun coming out of the holster, and you guys are in cribs, and I'm thinking, oh, I guess I'll never see my kids again. Beep. You are a fucking paratrooper, man. Paratroopers don't lose. You don't. And I just, like a monster, develop strength, man. That's why I'm sitting here. Those wings saved my life that day. So then of course I'd go in the Army, and I did a lot of cool shit, man. I mean, I jumped out of airplanes. I guess a guy that never did anything, I'd never been in an airplane in my whole fucking life. I'd never been out of LA. And now I fly in the airplane. I'm like, holy fuck, I'm in an airplane. Well, the next time I was in an airplane, I jumped out of that motherfucker. And the next 4 times I jumped out of it. And then I went to Fort Bragg, and that's what we did. Jumping out of helicopters, jumping out of airplanes all the time. And I was 18, 19 years old. I'm standing at the base of the fucking Great Pyramids. I'm like, what? And I'm going through Cairo, and then I'm in Germany, and then I'm in France. I mean, I'm going all over the world. I'm like, son of a bitch, man. There's a much bigger world than fucking Inglewood and Hawthorne. There's a lot of shit going on out here. And I loved every fucking bit of it. Backing up to basic training, the chaotic world I told you I described of my childhood. Messy, fucking cockroaches, dirt, bikers, no dinner time. I mean, if you were going to eat it all, it could be 3 a.m, or you don't eat. It's just whenever she did it, and it might be cereal, or it might be a baked potato. So I told you I was hungry all the time. That's no exaggeration. I lived my childhood hungry. Uncle Ray will tell you, I used to go to his house, and the first thing I do is fucking dump his cereal in my, I feel so bad now. We joke about it now. It's one of my friends. But I used to raid his cupboard, and I used to think, man, what would it be like to have a house with food in it like this? Because we couldn't do it. If we touched food, we get hit. That was for my mom's boyfriends and shit. And you got whatever you got. So you go in the Army, and of course, in those days, the military everybody says their time was harder. And it always is. I'm sure the guys in the 50s had it worse than I did. And now they can't hit you. They can't yell at you. And the women and the men are mixed. And it's a different world. And I'm not saying it's bad. It's gotten softer, because they realize that they don't need to fucking slap you around and cuss at you. But in my time, man, it was, from the minute you got off that bus, man, motherfucking shit, motherfucking red on the head like a dick on a look at this motherfucking, where are you from? This is how it was your first day. And of course, having red hair and being fucking tall is like flies to a fucking flame, or moths to a flame. They went right to me, And the funny thing is why people were stressing out about it. I couldn't get enough of it. I loved it. I mean, as odd as it sounds, my DIs yelling at me and making me do push-ups, it seemed so logical. It felt good, because they were yelling at me, not because I was a fucking loser and they just wanted to yell at me, because they expected something of me, and they told me what they expected. They demonstrated what they expected, and then they expected me to fucking do it. And if I didn't do it, there was a price to pay. That's called order. Not like, hey, fucking punk, loser, piece of shit. I wish I never had you. What's that all about? Why do you feel that way?
Just chaotic.
When these guys are mad, dude, there's a reason for it. You fucked up. And if you don't want them doing that, don't fuck up. If you don't make your bed right, or they'll flip that motherfucker across the room and yank all your shit out, and then while everybody else is eating, you're going to be making your bed again. We won't do that again. A lot of us slept on the floor, just slept on the fucking floor, because we didn't want one wrinkle on our bed. It was very common back then. Then I get into the mess hall, and you got kids from different walks of life. A lot of them had moms and dads, and maybe their moms made them cookies. I don't know. Nice lives, right? and they're complaining, what the hell, man, this food. I thought I literally died and showed up at fucking heaven, dude, because I had never seen so much food that I could have. And the one that fucked me over, man, like I literally stood there, was in the old days, they had these, maybe they still do. You could see them at buffets sometimes. I had never seen this, but it was a stainless steel square thing with one handle, you lift it up and ice cold milk comes out. The other one, you lift it up, chocolate milk comes out. And you could have as much of that as you wanted. Dude, you're telling me I could come here and just guzzle as much fucking milk as I want? I thought I died and went to heaven, dude. And while some people were complaining, I couldn't be happier. Not only that, but on my first day there, I was notorious for wearing the same clothes this year as I wore next year that I wore last year. My shoes falling apart. And so new clothes meant a lot to me. And I remember my first day, we're sitting there and these guys are stacking up fucking, I get fucking 3 or 4 pairs of pants, shirts, socks. And I was like, God damn it, man. And they're going to pay me for this? That's, you're young. You're not thinking like, yeah, well, you may have to earn it by getting your fucking head blown off. At that time, I was in a nice place where everything was neat and clean. Everybody's toothbrush was right next to their comb, which was right next to their fucking this, and was right next to their shaving thing. And everything was orderly, and everybody looked the same. We all had the same haircut. We all wore the same clothes. And, there was a reason that they did it that way. They wanted to strip away all of your identity and then turn you all into soldiers. That's why they did that. And it worked. It was fucking brilliant. Not everybody made it. Some people couldn't do it because they'd had a more cushy life. And I can't imagine what that would be like coming, good night, Michael, I love you. Going into that, I can't imagine it. But for me going in, it was a break, man. I already went through basic training at home, man. This to me was like, so that was at Fort Jackson. And I always tell people that in my life, though, I look at it as I was born at Fort Jackson and I was raised at Fort Bragg, because at Fort Bragg, that's totally different. Now you're in the real fucking military.